And now it's Deborah Kobylt Live.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today on Deborah Kobylt Live. And joining me from downstairs at our home is John Kobylt, host of the John Kobylt Show on KFI Radio and iHeart Radio, award-winning #1 radio show for decades now, honestly. So thanks very much for joining us, John.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I think this is going to be sort of a regular thing. I'm calling you our resident all-purpose analyst. Whatever's going on in the world, whether it's local, state, national politics, or international, we're going to have you on. So thanks for joining us.
Well, I'm literally a resident here, so that works perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very easy to get you on, let's just say. So thank you for joining me. So today, here's some of the topics I'd like to cover. Gas prices. Okay. We were just out of state. We were in Florida. We have kids in all states. Gas prices are what, like $2.59, $2.49, $2.89 at a high. It's like, oh, heaven forbid. And then you come back here and you hear that it could go up to $8 a gallon. Sorry, if that happens, I'm moving. So we're going to talk about that. Not me moving, but the gas prices. The latest with the fires and the great work that Rick Caruso is doing with his Steadfast LA. And what the heck is the state doing? And of course, our local authorities, what are they up to with the fires? From what I understand, 7 permits were given out. And at that rate, it could take a few hundred years to rebuild. Oh my gosh, we'll talk about that. Let's talk about the aviation disaster that's going on around the country, particularly at Newark Airport, where some say that air traffic controllers are still using floppy disks. That's terrifying. We fly into Newark Airport all the time. Not in the near future. Filming and keeping all that in LA. And I don't know, I guess that should take us through our time. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. So what do you want to start with first?
Here's what we're going to start with first. The gas prices. Having just come from a place where they're under $3, which when I tell people that in California, they don't believe me. I have to take a picture and send it to them.
Oh, Let's start with that. There's 27 states that sell gas for under $3. Mm-hmm. There's about 44 states that sell it for under $3.30. So most of the country has much cheaper gas. Our average, I just checked last night, $4.91 in California. So many places are well over $5 a gallon. And again, the average, you go back to the Southeast, it's in the 260s or 250s. Somebody at work was just in Austin. It was $2.39.
All right. Why are we so high?
Double, at least.
Right. Why are we so high? I don't really believe half the stuff that they say. The reason is why it's so high. I'm one of those people who believes that most things are getting pocketed. Okay. So why are we so high? And why could it go up to $8 a gallon, please?
Okay. 2 separate questions here. Why is it so high? And all the information I'm giving you is coming from a USC professor, Michael Miche. He did 2 reports in the last few weeks, which have really pissed off the Newsom administration. First one was he looked at 50 years of California gas pricing and found that the price increases are almost entirely due to the government, self-inflicted. He found very little price manipulation or price gouging going on. Going back to the 1970s, just doesn't exist. Second report is we have 2 major refineries closing in California because of the excessive regulations and taxes. They are closing before the end of next year. That's over 20% of the California gasoline supply. Well, what happens when supply is cut? Prices go up. It's, economics 101. And they're going up for the same reason that the gas is $5 a gallon. The companies cannot survive refining gasoline because of the excessive regulations and costs. So if you close 2 refineries, that price goes way up. On top of that, there's one more thing. The California Air Resources Board is demanding a new fuel standard, low carbon fuel standard. That's going to add 65 cents a gallon to the price. You total it all up a year and a half from now, you're looking at gas for about $8.50.
God, at that rate, I'd almost rather choke. I mean, honest to God, really, that's terrible. And by that, I mean with the air pollution. I mean, I'm saying that in jest, obviously. But the first reason you gave was the government. What do you mean by that?
There is about $1.55's worth of taxes, fees. Some of the taxes are on us directly at the pump. Some of them are on the oil refinery companies. A lot of it is for the greenhouse gas obsession, the climate obsession. And no other state is doing it. I mean, because you just look at the prices. I go to the AAA. If the AAA site has state-by-state gas prices, I check it almost every day. We are far ahead of any other state. Even Hawaii's 50 cents less. And that includes the transportation costs to get out to Hawaii. And it's because we have these excessive regulations for climate change. And that's another racket because the climate change money is going where? It has had no effect on the climate at all.
Let me just stop you there because I'm a believer in climate change. I just don't know where money is going. You know me, I like a forensic accounting. I want to know where everything is going. So the least they could do is say, hey, we're charging this much extra. Here's exactly where it's going. And here's how it's benefiting. They never do that. They always just collect money, up our taxes. People just take it. Nobody ever seems to like protests. I don't get it. And then we just sort of aimlessly believe or forget, hang on, where that money is going, in which case, at least show me the money, right?
It's feel-good nonsense. We are a tiny percentage of the world's population. Even the whole United States is only 4% of the world's population. We are 1%. There's nothing we can do. We could all kill ourselves and it's going to have no effect on the climate. None, zero. And 20 years of greenhouse gas taxes has had no effect on the climate. In fact, all the fires we've had have more than made up for whatever carbon we've saved. Yeah. So every time we do these carbon reduction schemes, fire happens, that wipes out 20 years worth of work. It's complete nonsense, a total waste of time and money.
All right. I disagree with some of what you're saying. All I'd like to say is perhaps on your show you can do this. Where's the money going specific? I know where they say it's going, but is it going there? You need to do that. You need to have a special report. Where's the money going? In fact, I'll do
Sacramento.
That. Okay, then what? Okay, hold on.
I'll give you an example. They're spending some of it on that idiotic high-speed rail train. We've spent $17 billion on that train in 17 years. There is not 1 foot of track that's been laid down. Not a foot. So
okay, well, that is terrifying to me. There's no track. And what's worse is they don't know where the money is. Mm-hmm. Could you imagine? I mean, I balance my checkbook, our checkbook every month. Could you imagine just like suddenly $17 billion of our money?
They don't care.
I do.
And the voters never hold them accountable. The voters vote the same band of crooks in every 2 years. Well, put yourself in the shoes of these crooks. It's like, I'm not getting punished. Let's steal some more money. What the hell? Public doesn't seem to mind. They keep reelecting me. And that's
I think if you sort of compare it to people and say, imagine if somebody came in and wiped out your bank account, you'd care. Well, that's what's happening here with our government. We're not going to solve that in this conversation, but it's something to think about, something to talk about. And I'd love it if on your show you could have somebody do a forensic accounting. I'll do it for you. You guys hire me over there. I'll do it for you because that's the kind of stuff.
This guy, Michael Mache, did a good job of decoding why the gas prices are so high and why they're going to go up to $8.50 a gallon. He did very detailed reports. I read them.
Yeah.
So he's the first guy to come out. And
yeah.
The Newsom administration is trying to smear and discredit him because he's telling the truth. And that's what happens when you tell the truth.
We're going to talk about Newsom in a little bit because first I want to talk about the fires. Rick Caruso is doing great work with Steadfast LA. However, from what I understand, the city so far has given out just 7 building permits. And how many years at that rate would it take to rebuild? Please.
461. 7 permits in 14 weeks. So it's about a permit every 2 weeks. They have a dashboard. LA County actually has put a dashboard up and it's for the Altadena and the Palisades fire combined. And so they're admitting to this. This is the government numbers. So there's 7 as of, Monday.
Okay.
Maybe the next one came through. I don't know for sure.
What can be done to speed that up? And what is Steadfast LA doing? I mean, Rick Caruso is just beside himself. And he's quite aware that we can't keep going like this. It's just, boy, if we didn't need him as our mayor. But go ahead.
Well, Rick put out an Instagram video where he explained that they are creating an AI tool so that you could use it and it would rapidly get your plans approved if you want to rebuild your house, and it would cut dramatically the time that you spend in bureaucratic hell. The video was interesting not only for that message, but just to see how strong and confident and intelligent and experienced he was. And then you cut to Karen Bass. And if you remember when she came off the plane back in January and she had a reporter chasing her for a minute and a half, and she had absolutely nothing to say. We played those clips side by side on the air. It's like, well, here's a guy who knows how to rebuild and how to run things, and here's what we have. She has not a word to say, not even, I'm sorry people are going through this.
Do they have just one guy working in the permit department who's looking at it, taking his lunch break, coming back, and then maybe stamping it after a couple of days? What's going on over there?
They don't care. They don't care. They're not going to get fired. You know, if you had a leader who said, we've got to do 100 permits a week or 1,000 permits a month, whatever is the limit of feasibility, and if you don't do it, you get fired. Those permits are going to be flying out the door like confetti. But they can't get fired. They won't get fired. Karen Bass hasn't come out and said anything critical about the process. Nothing. Neither did the county supervisors, because half the homes are in their district.
What have they said since this came out, that there's been just
Nothing.
a few? Are they saying how they plan to expedite it, or nothing?
No. She said way back week one, we're going to cut the red tape dramatically, okay? Gavin Newsom came down here and did a dance and said, we're cutting the red tape. And you know who spoke out is Jamie Dimon, who runs JP Morgan. He's the head of JP Morgan. He's Democrat. He's thought about running for president. He came out here to LA and said, you know what? We shouldn't call it red tape anymore. We should call it blue tape, because this is going on in Democratic run cities. And basically it's a disaster. The guys I respect who know what they're talking about, like Caruso or Jamie Dimon, are laying out the case very clearly, but nothing's getting done.
By the city and the state.
Yeah. And we're at the mercy of the city and state here. It's a local jurisdiction issue.
But then it becomes a problem with staying in LA, right? A lot of people have left. A lot of people are going to throw in the towel. Will they rebuild there? Yes. But it's going to be a different kind of rebuild. It's going to be developers coming in and selling to other people. Because if you're looking to rebuild in a couple of years because you have a family, they go to school here, you got to get it done. Otherwise, the entire generation is just going to pass. So, how do we keep things in LA? How do we keep the people in LA? How do we keep the jobs in LA, which is where I'm going to next? Stay in LA, keep the production here, right? I mean, Los
Start with
Angeles
getting the permits done.
Yeah.
If you want the current residents to give it a shot and, wait 2 years, approve their permits. If you're not going to, yes, everyone's going to move elsewhere.
Right. But once again, we need some good forensic reporting to go on the doorstep and say, why isn't this happening? We need an explanation. Do you need to hire more people, even though there's a hiring freeze? I mean, there's got to be something that we can do. I have no answer. I just live here.
I don't know why the media in LA doesn't cover this stuff. They simply don't. Yeah. We turn on the news at night, and what do we get? We get car chases. We get shootouts, chalk outlines in the street. We got Kim Kardashian. We don't get anything about real life. And they have LA Times too, because the LA Times is a burnt out shell of what it used to be. So these TV stations don't have many employees anymore, not many reporters. And the ones they have are really young and inexperienced, and they don't know anything. So I'm not getting information out of the local media anymore.
Yeah, well, we don't watch it anymore either. You said, what do we watch at night? We don't watch it anymore at night. We've sort of, it's because of what's become of it. I want to talk about the Stay in LA movement. In other words, so much production has left Los Angeles. I want it back here. I want it to stay here. This is our town. We love it here. But if they're leaving, I have friends who are very high up in some of the studios, and they will call me and say, Deborah, there's nothing happening here. Our sound stages are empty. I have friends who are in charge of other production companies, and they are building elsewhere. We know where that is, right? It's Atlanta, it's the Carolinas, it's New Jersey and New York. At a time when New York really had very little production, but little by little by little, they built it back up again. Same with New Jersey, which was actually the birthplace of I believe, film production.
Yeah.
At the Thomas Edison Studios. It's a different conversation, but it's all going back. How do we keep it here? We have a lot of creative people who live here, right? You go to any restaurant, there's always ideas being discussed. And what's going to happen?
You have to make it dramatically cheaper. The people who run the movie companies are like every other business. If it's too expensive, then they're going to move. And they do. It's like Elon Musk got sick of the expenses in California. He moved Tesla headquarters to Austin, Texas. We've lost hundreds of businesses, not just the movie industry, but in all industries, hundreds of businesses over the last 10 years. The taxes are too high. Corporate taxes, property taxes. Unions are a big problem. Nobody wants to talk about this because everybody knows Hollywood workers and union people, and everybody wants to say, oh, the unions are good. Yeah, they're good until they get too expensive. And they got too expensive. And you go to Georgia, they don't have the unions. Everybody in business is cold-blooded. All I care about, can I do this cheaper? Yes, I'm on the next plane. And you just look at the result. It's empty studios and sound stages everywhere. So why would it come back unless the taxes are cut, the regulations are cut, the unions cut their demands? They never do that. They'll go on strike for 6 months and paralyze the industry. I mean, those strikes were the worst timed strikes in history because they were coming off a big bubble of production for the streaming services. Well, you know what? The corporations don't care about your problems. People don't learn that. They don't care. You give them too much of a hard time, demand this, demand that. It's like, bye, we're going to Georgia. We got people who won't complain.
I support many of the unions because without them, people wouldn't be paid properly. They started with the right intention. They did. And certainly with what was going on with actors, where the big studios wanted to actually take your identity. You work for them for one day and they could own you for the rest of your life. That's absolutely ridiculous. And I think they did the right thing. And
I agree with you, but now they're not getting paid at all. Or they have to go to Georgia and live there to get paid. So ultimately, what did it get you? You can't stand on good intentions. Good intentions, you can't eat.
Newsom, it looks like he is itching to become president. Is that really going to happen? That he's going to run?
No, I think it's impossible. Oh, he's going to run, but he can't get elected. And he knows he can't get elected. And that's why he's switching all of his policies, or his positions, I should say. He's switching his opinions and his positions, but he's not changing any policies because he doesn't want to upset his progressive base. So he just goes on TV and says something.
Look, the Democratic Party is in trouble, but you just mentioned someone who is considering running, right, in the future. There are some candidates for the future in the Democratic Party that could be viable, but they need to get out there. And I agree with you.
You cannot run on 2020 politics. So the ones who decide to run on, 2026, 2028 politics could win. The 2020 crowd, the whole woke defund the police crowd who got all trapped in transgender issues and all that stuff, they got to get at. Nobody wants to hear it. Whether, again, it doesn't matter about the good intentions. What's the result? The result is you lost terribly. You can't allow tens of millions of illegal aliens to come over. That was such a losing issue. These are like 80-20 issues, 90-10 issues. Like 80 to 90% of the country is against this stuff, and you're running on it. You got to give it up, or you're out of business.
I don't necessarily disagree. However, I think some of those issues probably can be discussed at a different time, right? To run on many of the issues might not be so smart. They're important to me. People's rights are important to me, all people's rights, and should be discussed. But you're right, you can't run a country on them either. Finally, I'd like to talk about what is happening in aviation. I'm told, Newark Airport shut down a number of times because it went black right? You have air traffic controllers that just walked off the job due to stress. I don't blame them. Who wants that on their watch that, planes are colliding? And I'm told, this hasn't been verified yet, that some of the equipment is from the days of the floppy disks.
Yes, that's true.
And what is the Trump administration doing to make sure that we're updated?
Well, when they were there the first time, they did nothing. The Biden people did nothing. And, it's like driving an old car, having an old house. You'll get away with it for a while, and then all of a sudden, everything comes crashing down at once, right? Like in our house, right? All of a sudden, the dishwasher broke. Oh, wait, the refrigerator went out. What happened to the air conditioning? All seems to happen within a week. That's what's happened here at Newark Airport. Yes, they really had floppy disks, and they really haven't upgraded since the 1980s. If you could remember how a computer ran in the 1980s, right? You slid in a floppy disk, and that had your data or whatever work you'd created. They were still using that.
Oh, God. Okay, I got it.
You want to hear?
Go ahead. But what are they doing? Okay, I got it. I got the problem. What are we doing quickly? Okay.
First of all, Newark Airport's air traffic control is not in Newark. It's in Philadelphia. They are supposed to have a goal. They made a deal with the union, 14 air traffic controllers on any shift. That's reasonable, right? 14 guys.
I don't know.
You know how many they had the other night, Monday night?
No.
At times, one guy who had 168 planes taking off and landing in a 3-hour period from 6:30 to 9:30. One fully qualified air traffic controller. At times, he might have had a couple of trainees. But it was one guy. It's supposed to be 14.
Okay. Can't the federal government declare a massive emergency, call in the military? I don't know what to do. I'm not in this line of work. To make sure that there is a swifter way to train these guys, I have no answer. But I'm asking you, one guy? I'm not flying. Next time we go back east, we're driving. I'm not going to put up with this. Well, you laugh. I don't like to fly.
I wouldn't fly to Newark. I wouldn't fly to Newark either.
Okay, well, wait a minute. Would you fly into Philly? I mean, I know that the air traffic controllers are located in Philly, but I don't know who's watching the ball in Philadelphia or at JFK or certainly at Dulles or Reagan. I mean, who's watching?
The staffing is way down all over the place. Lots of people resigned, retired during the COVID situation. It takes years to train new ones. The pay wasn't good enough, so they had trouble recruiting. It's a disaster. It's incredibly mismanaged. They have spent zero money for 35 years on technological upgrades, and it couldn't be worse.
I know, but moving forward, what is this administration doing?
You got to spend a ton of money.
Are they?
I don't know. I'm not there. They say they're going to, but that's a whole process. You got to get Congress to appropriate it. You have to negotiate the contracts, and then you've got to recruit and train. Okay. And that's good. Best scenario is 3 to 4 years.
Okay, well then we're driving everywhere around the country for 3 to 4 years. I'm not flying into that.
In real life means 8 to 10 years.
Yeah, but it's no different than what's happening here with rebuilding, right? It takes too long. You don't have enough people on standby training, no matter if it's the federal government, the local or the state, and no matter who's running it on all sides. It just seems like regular people like us, we're all getting screwed. And I'm going to end on that point. How about you? Anything else you'd like
screwed. Yeah, that's good.
Anything else you'd like to add?
Title for the show. We're all getting screwed.
We're all getting screwed with John and Deborah. That's very funny. Anyway, anything else you'd like to add? Plug your own show. What are you talking about today? Blah, blah, blah.
Probably all the things we just talked about in some form, yes.
But, nothing else? Or did I do your show for you? What?
It's a good warm-up, actually. I get to rehearse my part.
You get to rehearse your part. Well, anytime you want me as a guest on your show,
yes.
Can we do that?
Sure. Well, yes.
I'm dressed. I could just come today if you want me over there
radio,
today.
You have to be.
No, that's not really true. You do your Instagram videos and they're on Twitter and they're all over the place. You have to look pretty now, John. In fact, you're all dressed up in your little green shirt. So you're all ready to go.
Only from the chest up.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us, John.
Well, thank you for having me.
Wait, don't go yet. I have to do a proper goodbye because last time you just pressed a button and you disappeared. That was you don't do that. Yeah, you've got to learn a little decorum here.
I'll do that anchor stare into the camera.
There you go. Do the stares. I'm giving you some accolades. Thank you very much for joining us today, John Kobylt, host of the award-winning John Kobylt Show, formerly the John and Ken Show with your partner, Ken Champeau. But you've been doing so great on your own, and I'm really proud of you for that. And everybody's giving you a lot of praise for a terrific show. John Kobylt Show on KFI, iHeart Radio, and all social media platforms. You'll find him. And thank you very much for being here and broadcasting from our basement. Appreciate it very much. And we'll see you next time.
All right. Bye.